What was their name? I think I remember their face, but the name. She was walking down a road towards. Where was she going? She looked down at her arm. The armor on her right arm was long gone, being worn off by the many battles. Her battered, scarred skin showed, and written on it was one word: Narshin. She was going to Narshin. The wind was blowing hard, been growing in strength since she left the last town. It had been a dire town. Even this far away, you could still feel the reach of the blight. The crops in the town had failed them this year, and everyone was worrying how they would feed themselves the coming winter. She had stayed. How long has she stayed there? A day? 2? A week? She pinched the bridge of her nose. She didn't remember. Her memory was filled with holes, gaps. She wrapped her cloak closer around her and kept walking. Had she worked in the town? She thought she had. Her bags felt heavier than before. Had there been a bandit problem? No, not a bandit problem. A monster problem. That rang through her in her head. Had she slain a monster for them, and in payment they had given her some food? It sounded right, but she didn't remember a monster. Then she had died. But if she was paid, she also had slain the monster. So the job was done. The sun was setting over the forest. She would have to find somewhere to put up camp soon, start a fire. It had not rained in a long while. That she was sure of, since the ground was dry. That would at least make it easy to find firewood. She didn't want to die from the cold again. It had not been a pleasant experience. Why didn't the blessing take the bad memories? Why did it always seem to go for the good ones? But their name. She was hunting someone. That much she knew. She was sure she would recognize them when she saw them. But the name, it was gone, taken by the blessing. The priest called it a blessing since it came from the gods. The knights like her that had to endure it called it a curse. She could still feel the mark on her chest above her heart. She walked for another mile, but didn't find a good place to camp. So decided to stop at the side of the road under a large tree. She gathered firewood and started a fire. She went through her backpack. There was food in it, some apples and dried meat, and her water skin was full. It would keep her going for a while. The scroll was still there, the one with her quest. Or at least the last piece. She had lost the top part long ago. It was ripped and stained with something she thought was blood. But enough was there to know her duty. Find this person and probably kill them. Their name and location was lost, but she had the name of a town on her arm. And even though the name of the person was gone, she would recognize them. That she was sure of. She put the bag away and inspected her armor. She took off her plates and looked over her body. There was blood. Her legs were covered with it. There was also some fresh wounds. Had that come from the monster she had fought? Had to be. Why hadn't she cleaned herself in town then? Had she fought someone on the road? Could be. The blessing was cruel that way. Sometimes it took the most recent memory, and all that you were left with was a wound. She took out her sword from the scabbard and her heart sank. Another dent in it. The tip of the sword was long gone, and there were dents all over, but it still worked as a sword. It was blessed by the god of war and the god of crafts. The sword would remember its true shape forever. Same with her armor. Both would work as intended as long as you fought with them. But she liked her sword, and every new dent and nick on it pained her pride. It had been a gift long ago from someone special, but from who she didn't remember anymore. She dreamt that night. Her mind went back to the day when she got her blessing. She was so proud. She remembered kneeling down in front of the priest for the god of death, the one who they had struck the bargain with. The pain of the blessing burned into her flesh. She felt a new kind of pain that day, the lingering ache as her soul and body was marked. Her dream shifted to her being a child, listening to her parents teaching her about the gods and the bargain that the great philosopher Jorm struck. They had been fighting the Blight for so long. Some said it had been a battle since the dawn of time. Humans, dwarves, elves against the Blight. Many times they had managed to push it back west, and then for some decades, even centuries, things were peaceful. But the Blight always came back. The war never ended. It just took a break, and the last decades has been hard. They had lost so much land, the Blight ever creeping closer to the heart of their lands. Then Jorm, the great philosopher, struck a bargain with the god of death, that anyone that wanted it could take the blessing, and with it they could not die. Instead of dying, the god would take a memory from them. With this, the knights could fight longer, go on impossible quest. You still age, but you would never die as long as you had this blessing. Her dreams shifted again. She was playing on some rocks at the sea with a girl. They were running around the rocks, going up and down. The smell of the sea filled her, and the birds chirped in the air. They were looking for something. The other girl had found a cave that she wanted to show her. They have done this often, playing by the rocks, going further and further, looking for something new and exciting. She wanted to stay here. It was warm. It was nice. It was peaceful. But the dream faded, and darkness came and filled the void left by the dream. She saw the Blight eating away at the world, and she saw the tower in the distance, and atop it she heard a voice. I shall wait for you here. She woke up in a rush. The fire had died down. Just some embers were left. The sun was still far away. She threw more wood on the fire to keep herself warm. She had dreamed something about warmth, something from her youth, she thought. but it was gone now. I shall wait for you here. Where has she heard that before? She shook her head and threw more wood on the fire and drew her cloak closer, keeping the cold away. She would find them, slay them, and then go home. Then her quest would be fulfilled. She tried to go back to sleep, but it didn't come. So she sat and waited till the first light of dawn, packed up her gear, and went off. Her mind wandered as she walked, to the day she took the oath to take the blessing. She had been a regular soldier in the army, risen in the ranks in the battle against the Blight. She didn't remember much of those days, but she knew there had been a time between her soldier duty and her becoming a knight. But that was a hole in her mind. Some days her mind felt more like a hole than whole. She remembered the pain, the branding iron the priest had used. The rest was obscured by fog.